Hello everyone, welcome to Academy of Civil Services. And throughout these video programs, we would like to give you some important current affair topics which are relevant to our prelims examinations. And you know that the last 1.5 years of the current affairs are relevant for the preparations. And we would like to help you throughout these video sessions, which some topic were discussed frequently in the news, and those topics were in the major discussions and that are related to our syllabus like economy, polity, geography, and history, and including the science and technology, ecology, environment. So those topics will be discussed throughout this video session. And please stay tuned with us, and we'll help you to assist your preparation better. So moving ahead, our today's topic now confidence motion. But was in the news in the context of the parliament, like the Pakistan, like the Pakistan lower house is called as National Assembly, the upper house of the Pakistan is called as Senate. In Indian cases, the lower house of India is called as Lok Sabha. The upper house of the India is called as Rajya Sabha. Everyone of you familiar with that? In your polity, I think you have got a classes with regard to parliament. You have studied about this fact. And through this class, it will be revision also. In Lok Sabha, we have seen that in both the Pakistan cases or Indian cases, we specifically focus on Indian cases, how this non-confidence motion is working, or the working or procedure of the non-confidence motion. Normally, in a government, in the Lok Sabha, we can see that ruling party will have a majority, and the opposition party, you can see in this image, which is representing the red box, they are the opposition will be the minority in these cases. So with the trust of the majority, government is continuing their government, or the system is continuing. So with that majority support, government can only continue the government or the system. Even whenever we go in detail about the structure of the Lok Sabha, you can see that there will be a majority party. Like currently in India, we have seen that BJP in together, they will call NDA. There will be coalitions also. Like the majority party will be there in part of the government. They are supporting the government. There will be an opposition in the system of Lok Sabha. Can you see the PPT, the animations of the PPT also? Can you see? Okay. Then the coalitions, some of the ministers in this area, you can see the ministers are representing in a different images, a graphical representation, animation and representation is also given in order to understand it. There will be a council of ministers. There will be a council of ministers. You can see that they are the council of ministers. Then there will be coalition members, a different party, but they are supporting the ruling party. Then there will be independent members. In some cases, nominated members will be there. Then if you represent one box in this area, in one box, if you represent this as a 10 MPs, if one box here representing 10 MPs, in order to introduce a motion for a no-confidence motion, that means government lost a trust in the Lok Sabha. That means government lost a majority in the Lok Sabha. That has to be checked. So we have a motion in our devices of the parliament that through introducing the no confidence motion, or it is called as not vote or not trust vote or no confidence motion, in order to introduce this motion, at least 50 members support is required. At least 50 MP support is required in order to introduce a motion that is called no confidence motion. Once it is introduced in the Lok Sabha, if it has a 50 MP support, then speaker will accept it. And this introduction of the non-confidence motion can only be against entire council of ministers. That means it cannot introduce or against any one individual minister or any individual MPs. It can only introduce against the council of ministers. That means in the image you can see that with the support of 50 MPs, it can introduce against the entire council of ministers. It can only introduce against the entire council of ministers. Once this accepted by the Lok Sabha speaker or the deputy speaker, in Lok Sabha cases we know that either the speaker or the deputy speaker or any other person, the chairpersons or will be the presiding officer of the house, they will decide and they will accept this introduction of the confidence motion, no confidence motion, and later they will fix a date. Like in the case of Pakistan, you have read about the Saturday, the no confidence will be held, or the Monday it will be held, or this date, 15th of the April will be this no confidence motion will be held. Like the date to fix the no confidence vote or no trust vote will be decided by the speaker or deputy speaker, or we say the presiding officer of the Lok Sabha will decide. Accordingly, there will be a date will be declared. Accordingly, the members of the total house will vote. And if the government lost the majority, you can see that the red color is now in majority. If the government lost the majority, that means many of these MPs were voted against the government, or if it is against the Prime Minister of India, for example, if any motion against Narendra Modi is the current Prime Minister of India, if the members who are part of the Lok Sabha, you are members of the Lok Sabha, if majority of them were voting against the government, that means the government is losing its trust. Government is losing its trust majority once it is passed, and the Lok Sabha speaker has fixed a date, and on that date it has voted, majority voted against the government. You can see that in this image. Many of the members were against the government. Only few members of the MPs or few members of the House is supporting with the government. That means the trust of the government is lost. That majority is against the government or against the Prime Minister. In this case, Imran Khan is also facing the same. The opposition party introducing this non-confidence motion. Through this procedure, they are trust checking whether the parliament members or the MPs have any trust over the government, that including the Prime Minister or the entire Council of Ministers. If they lost, that means if the government lost the majority, that means government has to resign immediately. So it will be introduced against entire Council of Ministers, and if they lost the majority, the government has to resign. All the Council of Ministers, including Prime Ministers, has to resign. That means government has to be dissolved. Lok Sabha need to be dissolved. This is what happening with the non-confidence motion. We'll study the fact with regard to non-confidence motion again. A non-confidence motion is a parliamentary motion which is a devices of the parliament moved in the Lok Sabha. It will be introduced against the entire Council of Ministers. So in the statement we can see it can be introduced against individual ministers or any private member. It cannot. It can only be introduced against the entire Council of Ministers. They are the executive, they are the government. So here through the opposition party are trying to check whether the government has a trust in the house, especially in the lower house, the Lok Sabha. And in order to introduce the motion, whoever is introducing this motion do not recur to state or say the reason for introducing that. That means no prior reasons also need to be stated for the adoption of the non-confidence motion. Whoever is proposing this introduction of non-confidence motion, they do not recur to say the reason behind the introduction or adoption of non-confidence motion. And a motion of the non-confidence motion is against the government that can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha. And all these facts we only talked about Lok Sabha. That means the non-confidence motion can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha, not in the Rajya Sabha, as per the rule of 9198. As per the rules of procedure of the business of the Lok Sabha, any member of the House, that means any MP, including the private member, that means private member, can move a non-confidence motion. So that means any member of the House, either the independent member or any other nominated member, any member of the House can introduce this non-confidence motion in the Lok Sabha. Only it can be introduced in the Lok Sabha, which is the lower house. Again, we'll study more facts like whether the constitutions mentioned or not. Sometime in prelims, we have seen that question saying that the constitution has mentioned, or the constitution didn't mention, or constitution didn't define, not define. Those words, those are the keywords. Again, we have to catch it, or we have to recognize. In this context, the Constitution of India does not mention about either a confidence, the word of confidence, or non-confidence motion. So if a statement in the future it's coming like the Constitution of India has mentioned about the non-confidence motion, will be wrong. Here we have to understand Constitution of India does not mention about the word confidence or non-confidence motion, but indirectly under Article 75, already many previous questions were repeated on this area. Under Article 75, it said that the Council of Ministers, they are the executive, are collectively responsible to this Lok Sabha. Yeah, that is a feature of parliamentary form of government as well. In this parliamentary government, which is limited by the Constitution, the executive, they are the Council of Ministers, collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. That is mentioned by Article 75. So in this context, no confidence motion is actually a devices of the parliament checking whether the government, that means the council of minister, has a trust, whether the majority, they have a majority. If they do not have a majority, they have to resign from that. So the role of speaker, we have seen that speaker in that case's opinion that motion will be proposed. In order to introduce this motion or accepting this motion, at least 50 MP support is required. A minimum of 50 members support and accept is required in order to introduce this confidence motion. If there is no any 50 MP support, then it will fail. That means the motion will fail. That also we have to remember, the 50 MP support is required in order to introduce. It's not about passing a motion, it's about introducing a motion. Please remember that fact. If a motion is accepted, that already we have discussed, the speaker of the house will announce a day, that means a date, when the motion to be discussed, and that day cannot be more than 10 days. This is another fact in the text. You have to please remember, underline it. The day which the speaker decide cannot be more than 10 days from the day the motion is accepted. That is a limitation of the time also be set. The speaker has to fix a date within the 10 days when this motion is accepted. So these are the facts we have to remember. The voting in the non-confidence motion can be in voice vote or division of vote, or any other kind of vote will be there. In the mode of vote, it will be according to that. So that means the government of the day has to resign the government if it lost the confidence or the no confidence. That means majority. If a government lost majority, it has to resign. If an individual or party who are abstain from voting, like somebody will be abstain the voting in that, like taking means motions. So those members who are abstained or parties, they will be removed from the overall strength of the houses, and then the majority will be taken into account when we calculate the majority votes. So these are the one of the devices of the parliament. I already in the previous class discussed. Please study about question number 0 hour, which is an Indian innovation. We have started using since 1962. And if we calculate 0 hour, which is introduced in India in 1962 to 2022, this year, this is the 60th anniversary of the 0 hour. So we can expect a question on 0 hour as well as the no confidence motion, which is again another devices of the parliament, one of the motion in the parliament, which was in the news in the context of Pakistan. So this is the syllabus of Indian polity. India has also the same devices. That way we have to study this